1. I'm sitting on the sofa with my legs crossed, looking at several boxes of money lined up on the table. Daniel has a very severe manic disorder during his susceptible period. Only an Omega who is a perfect match can calm him down. You're the only one I found whose pheromones match Daniel's 100%. As long as you agree, this money will be transferred to your account immediately. I scanned the money several times with my eyes, then shifted my gaze to the woman who was speaking. This is a middle-aged woman who is very well maintained. She has a decisive temperament and is a well-known Mrs. C of the C family in the upper class. If the mother looks like this, the son should be decent too. Seeing that I didn't say a word, the woman exhaled slightly and continued to sweeten the deal. 3 million per time, or you can put forward any other conditions you have. I let out a soft laugh, uncrossed my legs, and leaned back on the chair, relaxing my body. It's not about the money. According to what you said, your son has a severe manic disorder. What if he hits me? Naturally, I'm not going to be stupid enough to take a beating. Under normal circumstances, I'll defend myself and even fight back. Can you accept that? The woman nodded. Sure. If you get injured because of Daniel, I'll cover all the medical expenses and pay you additional compensation. I waved my hand. That's enough for me to hear. I moved my neck a bit and stood up. Let's go. Take me to your son. Let me see what a crazy wolf dog looks like. 2. As soon as I entered Daniel's bedroom, the pheromones in the room were so strong that I frowned. If I hadn't taken the inhibitor, I might have been affected too. Looking around, the ornaments in the room had been smashed to pieces. There was a man sitting on the sofa chair by the window, with slightly disheveled hair and a messy collar. The man looked up at me. His eye sockets were extremely red because of the bloodshot eyes. Get out. I stared at his face for a couple of seconds. Well, he's actually quite good looking. He suits my taste. Didn't you hear me? Get the hell out of here. Daniel grabbed the vase on the table and hurled it at me. I dodged to the side, and the precious porcelain shattered on the floor. The pheromones in the room became even stronger due to his emotional upheaval. He's quite fierce. He needs to be tamed. I walked closer with my hands in my pockets, avoiding the fragments on the floor, and stopped a few steps away from him. I know you're in great pain right now. I'll give you 2 options. One is that I knock you out, and you endure your susceptible period while unconscious. The other is that you temporarily mark me, and I'll soothe you. Choose one. Can't you understand human language? The irate man got up, grabbed me, and tried to drag me out. I spun around and delivered a powerful kick, sending him back onto the sofa. I have to say, this guy is quite heavy. Calm down. I don't want to waste my energy on fighting. The man seemed extremely angry. He clung to the sofa with both hands, stared intently at me, and kept growling menacingly in his throat. His chest heaved violently as he struggled to control his emotions. The atmosphere was tense. The next moment, he pounced on me like a cheetah. I took a half step back and seized the opportunity to grab his shoulder and exerted force. With a dull thud, I threw him over my shoulder and slammed him onto the floor. Daniel was dazed from the fall. He stared blankly with his eyes open and couldn't say a word for a long time. I stepped on his chest with a moderate force and slowly slid down to his abs. Then I casually bit my fingertip. A few wisps of pheromones overflowed with the blood on my finger. Daniel was stunned at first, and then the bottom of his eyes turned red and black. He stared at my neck without moving. Seeing this, I slightly pulled open my collar, exposing the skin of my collarbone. I tilted my head and looked down at the man under my feet. Do you want a bite? Beg me. There was a deathly silence. Our eyes met, and I waited patiently. After a moment, Daniel finally seemed to be unable to bear it anymore. He held my ankle with his hot palm and stroked up my calf along my trouser leg, speaking in a hoarse voice. I beg you, let me bite you. 3. The soft skin at the back of my neck was pierced by sharp teeth, and the rich pheromones were injected into my gland. I let out a muffled groan of impatience and grabbed the curtain tightly, so as not to slip down due to my weak limbs. Be gentle. Daniel hugged me from behind. His lips and tongue were still licking the gland, and there was a very satisfied hoarse breath in his throat. The pheromones of the alpha and the omega blended and entangled ambiguously with each other. After gasping for a while to catch my breath, I pushed Daniel away, reapplied the suppression patch, and sat down on the sofa leaning against it. Are you sober now? The man blinked several times. His eyes were clear, and a faint blush slowly crept up the tips of his ears. He was like a shy young wife, walking over obediently with his head down and sitting opposite me. What's our relationship now? What do you mean? I said. I have nothing to do with you. Daniel looked up in surprise, his hair almost standing up like a question mark. I have a relationship with your mother. Your mother is my benefactor. The man's pupils dilated in shock, and his expression was as cracked as the shell of an ancient tortoise. You're my stepfather. What a mess. I straightened up and explained word by word. My name is Oliver. Your pheromone is a rare case nationwide. Coincidentally, mine is too. And I happen to be the only omega in the country whose pheromone matches yours 100%. Your mother came to me with money and asked me to treat your irritability during the susceptible period. I'm just doing a job for money. Do you understand? Can you finish speaking all at once? I thought I cuckolded my mother. Daniel let out a sigh of relief and casually ruffled his hair. Anyway, since I've marked you, I'll be responsible for you. Stop. I reached out to interrupt him. It's just a temporary mark. Your mother has already paid the money. The deal is over. Now that you're fine, I'll leave first. Daniel stared at me in disbelief, as if I were a heartless man who discards someone after using them. I got up and was about to leave when he grabbed my wrist. Where are you going? Going home. Do you have anything else? I asked in confusion. Daniel gritted his teeth. My susceptible period isn't over yet. What if I go crazy again when you leave? You've taken the money, so you have to see it through. It does seem to make sense. Then what do you want to do? You have to stay and accompany me, and provide comfort when I need it, Daniel said firmly. I looked around. Obviously, there was only one bed in the room, and the sofa was a single one, which couldn't accommodate a person. Then where will I sleep at night? Let me make it clear first. I never sleep in the same bed with others. Not even a 2-meter wide bed. It's easy. Daniel waved his hand grandly. You can sleep on the floor. Although there isn't a second bed, there are plenty of quilts. I stroked my chin and hesitated for a while, then nodded after a long time. But you have to pay more. Late at night, I was comfortably scrolling through my phone. Daniel was tossing and turning and muttering beside me. It was so noisy. I glanced at him. Can you be quiet? If you want to sleep, just go to sleep. Daniel suddenly threw off the quilt and sat up. No, I just don't understand. This is clearly my home. Why do you sleep in the bed and I sleep on the floor? I clicked my tongue. Didn't I tell you? The floor is too hard. I'm not used to sleeping on it. But my bed is 2 meters wide. Do you need to swim when you sleep? Why can't we put a quilt in the middle and each sleep on one side? I'm a man of principle. I won't do anything to you. Can't you just overcome your fussiness? I forced a smile and went to turn off the light. Don't be naughty, be ye good. Sleeping on the floor is good for your back. Go to sleep early. Good night. There was a moment of silence in the dark. And then his angry roar came again. Then why don't you sleep on the floor? I turned over and faced away from him, because my back is already in good condition, and it's basic courtesy for an alpha to give way to an omega. Come on, I'm sleepy. Shut up and stop making noise. Someone behind me was still muttering. I was too lazy to care and fell asleep contentedly. 5. To be honest, I approached Daniel not because of the money he offered, but out of curiosity. Because I've known for a long time that he would be my alpha. My mother is a fortune teller. She can accurately predict all the things that will happen in the future and mysteriously say, This is the irresistible force of the plot. When I was very young, she sent me to learn martial arts, under the pretext of saying, we omegas should not only be as beautiful as flowers, but also be able to defeat all the alphas. But at that time, I hadn't gone through my secondary gender transformation yet. I clenched my fists and said, I don't want to be an omega. My mother lovingly patted me on the shoulder and said, baby, not only will you be an omega, but you'll also inherit my peerless beauty. You're an omega that every alpha will covet. Before you meet your destined alpha, Daniel, you have to defeat all those scumbag alphas who try to force themselves on you. However, Daniel isn't a good guy in the early stage. He has some problems. If he dares to roar at you, you should beat him up too. That was the first time I heard the name Daniel, the name of my future partner. Later, everything my mother said came true. I transformed into an omega. During my school days, half of the alphas wrote love letters to me, and half of them tried to sexually harass me. But in the end, I beat them all until they couldn't get up. As time passed, I became well known for my fierceness. Alphas would rather take a detour when they saw me. I've been waiting for Daniel to appear, wanting to see what this so-called alpha of mine looks like. Now that I've seen him, no wonder he's my destined alpha. Every aspect of him is right up my alley, and even our pheromones are a perfect match. It's just that his temper is a bit bad. He needs to be well disciplined. Early the next morning, I was woken up by being pinned down. When I opened my eyes, I found that an arm and a leg were wrapped around my waist and legs, and there was warm breath on the back of my neck. The scumbag who's sexually harassing me. I turned around and kicked, expressionlessly kicking Daniel off the bed. 6. The servants of the C family were very grateful to me. They looked at me as if I were a living bodhisattva. According to the butler, they've never had such a peaceful time during the young master's susceptible period. As long as I stand beside the young master, his rabies will be cured immediately. If I get a little closer to him, his tail would wag so high. So when I was about to leave, the butler led the servants to line up, each with tears in their eyes and full of reluctance on their faces. After his susceptible period ended, Daniel stood against the door with his arms crossed. Why are you looking at him like that? He's not your young mistress. Yes, yes, yes. Not yet. Someday you'll be begging me to be one. I rolled my eyes, changed my shoes and prepared to go out. But I hadn't walked far when Daniel chased after me, grabbed my shoulders and pouted. Oliver, you have to remember that we have a contract. Although we don't have a relationship now, but you can't let other alphas touch you, not even betas. Do you understand? Hearing this, I raised one eyebrow. The contract only states that I'm responsible for soothing your susceptible period. There's no such clause as you mentioned, right? I'm not your partner. Why are you restricting my freedom? Daniel's face turned green and red, changing like a chameleon. It took him a long time to find an excuse to speak. Because I can't stand the pheromones of anyone other than you. The smell of others on you will only make me more irritable. All right. I waved my hand, then put my hands in my pockets and leaned in, narrowing the distance between us to an almost flirtatious one. Just one more inch forward and we'd be kissing. The tips of Daniel's ears started to turn red again. I exhaled and said, I can listen to you, but I'll pay more. Well, he can answer quickly now. I straightened up, stretched lazily, and then turned around to leave. Okay, it's a deal. 7. After I got back, I plunged into the laboratory and started preparing for my graduate thesis. Under normal circumstances, the interval between an alpha's susceptible periods is between 1 and 3 months. But unexpectedly, less than 10 days later, the butler called me. Oliver, please come here. The young master is in a very bad condition now. I frowned. How could this happen? Didn't he just get through it? I threw down the experimental data in my hand and rushed to the private room of Ruizho restaurant as fast as I could. This entire floor had basically been cleared, and the entrance was surrounded by people from the C family. The pheromones of Daniel in the air were incredibly strong. It was obvious that they were out of control. Even after I took an inhibitor, I was still inevitably affected to some extent. But upon closer smell, there was still a trace of another smell mixed inches. What on earth is going on? I asked in a deep voice. Well, the young master came here tonight to discuss a project with boss he. But there happened to be an Omega waitress who was in heat, and it just so happened that everyone on the scene was affected when she was serving the dishes. The young master was especially affected and had an attack on the spot. Fortunately, people dispersed quickly. Otherwise, there would have been a direct fight. After we cleared the place, the young master locked himself inside, and no one dared to go in. The butler was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. He looked worriedly at the closed door and said, "We don't know how he is inside. What kind of thing has he encountered? How unlucky he is." I took a deep breath, took off my coat and threw it to the butler, then started to stretch my muscles. "Oliver, what are you doing?" "Warming up. It'll be easier to handle things after a good warm-up." The butler looked extremely shocked. "H here. Maybe we should take the young master home first and then. It depends on whether he agrees or not." I twisted my neck, turned the key in the lock and walked inches. Immediately, I was assailed by Daniel's overbearing scent. I closed the door behind me and scanned the private room. There were several obvious cracks on the marble table. The chairs were lying in disorder on the ground, and some of them were even broken. Obviously, this place had just endured a merciless smashing. And the culprit was huddled in a chair in the farthest corner, with his head buried deep in his arms. "Daniel?" I tentatively called out. The man looked up, with the veins on his forehead bulging and his eye sockets a familiar scarlet. Daniel slowly stood up, his eyes fixed on me, as focused as if I were his prey, and he didn't move an inch during the process. He got up and slowly approached me. I tensed my muscles, highly concentrated, ready to fight at any moment. But the next moment, my eyes suddenly widened, because Daniel staggered forward. He looked fierce but actually was extremely gentle as he opened his arms and hugged me tightly. He rubbed his nose against my neck, his voice deep and hoarse. "Why did you come so late? I've been waiting for you for so long." He pressed against the back of my neck and took 2 deep breaths. He gritted his teeth but didn't bite down. He backed away slightly, his eyes full of glints. "Can I kiss you now? Please?" Daniel placed the back of his hand on my cheek, waiting for my permission. The veins on his forehead extended to his neck, looking extremely impatient. I scanned his eyebrows and eyes inch by inch until I reached his lips. After staring for a while, I said coldly, "No." As soon as I finished speaking, I suddenly raised my hand and delivered a sharp chop. The movement was swift and without any hesitation. Daniel was caught off guard by the chop and fainted immediately. When I caught his limp body, his shocked eyes finally closed, looking rather like he died with regret. "Come on. I don't want to do a temporary marking in public. Matteo, come in and carry your young master away." Coming. Is it done already so soon?" "Young master, what's going on?" I handed Daniel over to the butler Matteo and rubbed my slightly sore shoulders. "I knocked him out. Take him home first. We'll talk about the rest when we get home." Night. The room was dim, with only a small night light emitting a faint glow. Daniel's long and slender eyelashes cast a shadow in the dim light. His originally sharp jawline showed a bit of smooth softness. I sat beside him, leaned over, and looked at his straight nose bridge and thin lips. He's really quite handsome. His nose looks very kissable, and his mouth looks very biteable. Kissing him should be very comfortable. Just as my fingertips touched the corner of his mouth, Daniel slowly woke up. He half opened his eyes and looked at me for a while, and then suddenly seemed to remember that I had knocked him out. His eyes immediately widened as big as a bull's. "Oliver, you ambushed me." I blinked my eyes and returned an innocent look. I did this for your own good. You won't feel uncomfortable when you're unconscious. Look, it worked. You've arrived home obediently. Daniel stared at me with his mouth slightly open. His eyebrows knitted into a frown, as if the words unreasonable were written on my face. After holding it in for a long time, he turned his neck and pouted his mouth. I endured so hard not to hit anyone. I finally waited for you to come, and this is how you treat me. Not only did you not let me kiss you, not comfort me, but you also hit me. You're heartless and inhumane. Now I'm not only emotionally disturbed, but also have a pain in my neck and a heartache. I'm not going to get better from this illness. You figure out what to do. Daniel pulled the quilt up higher, leaving only his resentful eyes outside, clearly showing the words quickly comfort me. I couldn't help laughing. Why is he acting like a spoiled child? However, I actually quite enjoy it. I closed my eyes, lowered my head slightly, and planted a very light and quick kiss on his forehead. I know you behaved very well today. This is your reward. It's free. Complimentary one. Daniel's eyes suddenly widened, looking at me in disbelief. The pheromones in the air became a bit stronger. I gave him a pat through the quilt. Calm down. Don't lose control again. Daniel remained silent. He suddenly got up, hugged me and exerted force. He swung me in a semicircle on the bed and I was thrown to the other end of the bed. I sank into the soft quilt, being embraced by his arm. The next moment, the inhibitor patch was picked up by his mouth. The soft skin and hard tooth tips alternately rubbed against the soft flesh on the back of my neck. Oliver, can I bite you? I want to bite you. Daniel's voice became much deeper, with an indescribable emotion. The overbearing yet gentle pheromones slowly surrounded me. I squinted my eyes due to the rubbing. Go ahead and bite. That's why I'm here. 10. With me around, Daniel was very well behaved. He found others more agreeable and had no more grudges against the furniture at home, which had been replaced countless times. In the morning, he could greet the butler kindly. Matteo was so touched that he almost shed tears on the spot and wanted to kowtow to me. His illness got better, but he became more and more clingy. He followed me everywhere. He would wait at the door when I took a shower, sleep close to my neck at night, and when having meals, he almost wanted to pull me onto his lap. I was really suffering, so I rushed back the moment Daniel's susceptible period ended. But even after leaving, I still couldn't escape Daniel's message bombardment. Where are you? What are you doing? There isn't an alpha around you, right? Can I come to have a meal with you? And so on. First, I still had the patience to reply 1 or 2 sentences. Later, I realized he was just bored, so I didn't bother to pay attention. But if I ignored him, he would call. If I didn't answer the phone, Matteo would step inches. Oliver, it's bad. The young master said he'll hang himself if you don't answer the phone. Oliver, it's bad. The young master said he'll go on a hunger strike if you don't have a meal with him. Oliver, help. The young master is out of control and about to hit someone again. Oliver, stop. I was at the end of my patience. I rubbed my temples wearily and put away the report full of experimental data. Tell Daniel that I'll come over tonight and ask him to stop making a fuss. Sure. Matteo replied with a happy little intonation and went back to report the news cheerfully. I relaxed and leaned back on the chair, rubbed my slightly sore neck, and let out a helpless laugh. It had been a while since I last saw Daniel. Counting the days, in 2 more months, my heat period would also arrive. 11. When I was getting ready to go to the C family in the evening, I found a very familiar car parked at the school gate. In a short while, the C family's driver got out of the driver's seat, bowed respectfully to me, opened the rear door with one hand, and held the other hand against his abdomen, waiting aside. This grandeur makes it seem as if I'm his boss. I silently got into the back seat. As soon as I got in the car, I was pulled into a familiar bear hug. Daniel rubbed his straight nose against my neck. I miss you so much. I slapped him on the head. Get off me, or I'll report you for sexual harassment. Daniel buried his head and groaned. It doesn't count. Anyway, Suddenly he stopped, changed the subject, and whispered firmly, I'm just enjoying my legal rights in advance. Pretending not to understand what he was saying, I propped my hand on the car window and let him take advantage of me by touching and rubbing. 12. Daniel took being clingy to the extreme. Although he didn't do anything out of line, I was held by him all night like a koala hugging a tree. People who don't know might think it's his heat period. His iron-like arms held me so tightly that I couldn't move, and I had a sore back and neck after sleeping all night. Daniel was still sound asleep. I broke free from his embrace, tilted my head back, and stretched my body. After rewarding him, it's time to go back to the laboratory to finish up. After I finished washing and packed my things and went downstairs, I saw a handsome, male mixed-race Omega sitting in the hall. The one sitting opposite was also stunned when he saw me. After a moment of daze, he immediately stood up excitedly and questioned me. Who are you? Why are you in Daniel's house? The Omega seemed to have thought of something and exaggeratedly frowned. Could you be the lover he's keeping? What on earth is this all about? The little mixed-race boy folded his arms and gave a cold snort. I don't care if you're a kept lover or whatever. Don't come here again in the future. My name is William, and I'm Daniel's future marriage partner. I slightly raised my eyebrows. Fiancé? Yes. You should also know how rare Daniel's pheromones are. I have a 70% high compatibility with him. The physiological attraction of highly compatible pheromones is irresistible. You know how rare this is. I advise you to be sensible and leave early. Don't make a scene. I nodded in agreement. Indeed, the higher the compatibility, the greater the physiological attraction, which will greatly affect a person's choice of a partner. As long as you understand. William brushed his bangs. The butler Matteo suddenly appeared out of nowhere and drifted beside him like a ghost. Young Master Chi. This is Oliver. He is not the young master's kept lover, but he has a 100% pheromone compatibility with the young master. Matteo emphasized the word 100% and raised the intonation at the end of the sentence. Looking quite proud, William was incredulous. He stared at me from head to toe, and his face changed several times. After a moment of silence, he stammered and spoke. So what if it's 100%? This is not the only criterion for choosing a partner. As long as two people have feelings for each other, they can get married as long as the compatibility is just passable. You probably haven't seen Daniel during his susceptible period. You don't know that Daniel has severe mania. He wants to beat anyone he sees, but he has never beaten me. I don't need to say more, right? William looked extremely proud. Before I could say a word, Matteo leaned over to him again. Well, that's because the young master only beats alphas, not omegas. You didn't see it. In front of Oliver, the young master is so obedient. He's like a well-behaved dog, only getting beaten up. Matteo stroked his chin, shook his head, and clicked his tongue twice. William was silent for a long time. William grabbed his hair and roared in panic. How could you beat someone? How could Daniel keep such a barbarian like you in the C family? You're going too far. Matteo stuffed a piece of bread into his mouth with extreme precision. What nonsense are you talking about? The young master is actually very willing. He wishes he could get beaten up every day. Ignoring William's shocked look, Matteo walked over respectfully with a cup of tea in his hand, wearing a kind and loving smile on his face. Oliver, this is top-grade black tea. You worked hard last night. Would you like to have a taste? William chewed up the bread in his mouth. But Daniel said he would marry me. That was something the young master said when he was playing house at the age of 3. He definitely won't admit it now. Auntie also said so. She said that 20 years ago. At that time, the mistress also said that she wanted the young master to marry 3 at once. William shouted at me. William, anyway, don't have any delusions. Number, you two have said everything. What am I supposed to say? I silently picked up the tea and took a couple of sips. It didn't suit my taste, so I put it back. Then I patted Matteo on the shoulder. I'm going back to University A. Contact me if there's any situation. 13. Why are you leaving now? Just as I was about to leave, Daniel woke up. He was wearing his pajamas askew and came downstairs with a messy head of hair. William's eyes lit up and he pounced on Daniel like a butterfly. Daniel, long time no see. I miss you so. But Daniel was like he had an automatic dodging device. He sidestepped to avoid William's bare hug, letting him pounce on the stair railing. I'm asking you, why don't you stay a little longer? He reached out and brushed my bangs. I glanced at William behind him, who was being held back by Matteo and was chewing on his sleeve, and smiled with a curl of my lips. Your fiancé is still here. It's not appropriate. If I stay, I'll only beat you up. I turned around and took a step. Daniel followed me eagerly. I don't have a fiancé. Don't slander me. Please stay a few more days. You'll ignore people again when you get busy. If you want to beat me up, just do it. Anyway, I have thick skin. You can even whip me. I ignored this clingy big dog and went straight to the entrance hall. Before going out, I saw Matteo holding William, who was staring blankly with wide-open eyes, and putting his hand to his mouth. See, I told you, the young master is really willing. Daniel chattered all the way with me to the villa entrance. I really have nothing to do with him. He's just the son of my mom's friend. I'd forgotten about him if he hadn't come back. Everything he said is pure nonsense. Don't believe a single word. He's just trying to sow discord. Stay a few more days. I really can't sleep at night without you. Lack of sleep can easily cause my condition to relapse. And then all your efforts will be in vain. Oliver? Darling? Sweetheart? Are you really listening at all? The sudden endearment gave me goosebumps. I quickly turned around to stop him. I need to go back to school to finish the last experiment. I'm still short of some data for my thesis. This is crucial for my postgraduate graduation. I'll be very busy these days. Be a good boy and don't cause any trouble. Okay. I'm more worried about my experiment than that Omega. Daniel wrinkled his face into a ball. But seeing how serious I was, he could only droop his head and mutter a soft "oh." The nearly 2-meter tall man hunched over with his hands hanging down. If he had a tail, it would definitely be drooping listlessly. Seeing his pitiful look, I mercifully added, if you really miss me, you're allowed to call me, but only after 10 of the clock at night. I'll be in the laboratory before then. Hearing this, Daniel was like a man pardoned. He happily picked me up and spun me around 3 times on the spot. Just as I instinctively wanted to give him a judo throw, he quickly leaned in and pecked my lips. You focus on your work and take care of yourself. Matteo, ask the driver to take Oliver back to school. The driver came immediately upon hearing the order. I got into the car with a slightly flustered heart. My heart rate was not stable all the way. Looking at the busy streets, I gently rubbed my lower lip with my fingertips. 14. The night after tomorrow? I'm not sure if I'll be available. Can you make time? Those guys are all bringing their wives. I can't lose face. It's been a long time since my brothers got together. You have to support me. I locked the laboratory door and moved the phone to the other ear. Isn't William there? Go to him. There came the sound of grinding teeth on the phone. Daniel gritted his teeth. Comrade Oliver, this is already the 88th time I've clarified to you that I have nothing to do with William. If you keep this up, I'll hang a sign to prove my innocence and hang myself. You'll have to bury me when I'm dead. I let out a snort of laughter. Laugh? You're still laughing. Am I that amusing to you when I'm dead? You're thinking about remarrying before even entering the door, aren't you? Oliver, let me tell you, don't even think about remarrying. All right. Stop acting crazy. I'll go. After getting my positive reply, Daniel hung up the phone contentedly. Anyway, the experiment is done. Just go along with him. After being busy for several days in a row, I felt a bit hungry when I relaxed. I planned to go out of the school gate to have a late-night snack. Passing by an old alley, I heard intermittent cries for help. I squinted and saw that two hooligans were surrounding a person. It seemed they were up to no good. Tut, someone is so bold. I flexed my wrists and walked in to pat the shoulders of these two guys. Who is it? Who is meddling in other people's business? An Omega? Pretty cute. What? Do you want to have some fun with Big Brother too? I showed my teeth and smiled. I'm your dad. I lifted my foot and kicked. One of them was kicked hard against the wall, and 2 layers of wall dust fell off. Damn it, you're asking for death. The other one rushed over with a scowling face. After a few uppercuts and throws over the shoulder, both of them were howling and rolling on the ground. Seeing that I was about to call the police, they immediately supported each other and scurried away timidly. I shook the dust off my body and looked back. The person who was surrounded before was actually William. William seemed to be extremely frightened. He let out a wail and hugged me, crying, 15. Are you out of your mind? Don't you know you're a weakling? How dare you go to the bar alone? What if I hadn't run into you today? Have you ever thought about the consequences? William mumbled and sniffled. I just wanted to see if Daniel really didn't care about me, so I wanted him to pick me up. Who knew he just told me to send my family's driver? I gave him a light knock on the head out of frustration and said, "What's wrong with your family's driver? It's perfectly normal for your family's driver to pick you up. You got sulky and left the bar alone without even noticing you were being followed. You'll end up being stupid to death sooner or later." William wanted to refute but didn't dare. He stole a few glances at me and slowly shuffled over to me, then flattered me by shaking my arm. "Well, thank you. Otherwise, I'd be done for. You were so cool just now. Did you beat Daniel like that too?" I gave him a disdainful look and didn't want to reply. Really, I was so stunned. I didn't know Omegas could be so strong. "Can I call you Oliver from now on?" I didn't agree, but William started calling me that on his own. "Oliver, does that set of combos you just did have a name? Can you teach me? I also want to beat alphas like that." You don't know. At that moment, the world seemed to be in slow motion. I almost thought I was going to fall in love with you. You were so cool. No wonder Daniel likes you. Compared with you, I'm really just a weakling, the kind that's as skinny as a stick. As we were talking, the chief family's driver finally arrived and thanked me profusely. William was still chattering in my ear. I couldn't stand it anymore and stuffed him into the car. When the car started, he rolled down the window, put his hands around his mouth and shouted, "Oliver, I won't fight with you for Daniel anymore. He's yours." Well, you'd have to be able to take him away first. After the car disappeared from sight, I put one hand in my pocket, bought a plate of fried rice noodles and turned away. 16. On the day of the party, I showed up as promised. Daniel insisted on putting his arm around my waist as we went in, saying, "This way, it'll look like we're really in love." Daniel's friends, like him, are all second-generation science from well-off families. Each of them is doing extremely well in the business world, and most of them are married. I obediently played the role of Daniel's wife and buried my head in eating. After several rounds of drinking, many people started to slur their words. Somehow, the topic shifted from the business sector to showing off their wives. My wife is just too considerate of me. Even when I come home drunk in the middle of the night, she'll get up to make me a hangover soup, for fear that I'll have a stomachache. I'm worried that she'll catch a cold. Everyone cheered. I picked up a crayfish. My wife is the same. Knowing that I'm too busy to eat, she comes to the company every day to bring me food and watches me eat. And all the food is made by herself. Look, she's even made me gain weight. Everyone applauded. I filled a bowl of fish soup. Haha, mine can't do such things. She just likes to cling to me. She can't fall asleep at night unless she lies on me. Everyone started to tease him again. When I was deciding which dish to eat, a beef rib was put into my bowl. Daniel put down his chopsticks, tilted his head slightly, and cleared his throat. My wife also cares about me a lot. When I go crazy, she beats me so hard that I can't even get up from the ground. She can also knock me out with one palm, for fear that I might hurt myself accidentally. Suddenly, the scene fell silent. With a thud, the bone fell into the bowl. Everyone present, whether they were alphas or omegas, looked at me in disbelief. I slapped Daniel on the back of his head and whispered through gritted teeth, "If you don't talk, no one will think you're mute." The people present looked nervous, and all their gazes were fixed on Daniel, as if they were afraid that he would get angry. But this guy just gave a silly laugh and filled me another bowl of soup. "Are you full? Have another bowl of soup. You need to gain some weight. You're too thin." Everyone widened their eyes, and then the place erupted in chaos. They all stood up and toasted me, shouting, "Sister-in-law is amazing," and "Sister-in-law is awesome." Daniel waved his big hand and took on all the toasts. "Let me do it, let me do it. My wife can't drink. I'll drink it, I'll drink it." Looking at his overjoyed look, I helplessly rubbed my forehead. 16. Daniel had drunk quite a lot. When most people had left, he still clung to me and wouldn't get up. I patted the hand around my neck. "Get off, you need to go back." Daniel hugged me and swayed. "I don't want to go back alone. I want my wife to go back with me." "Who's your wife?" "I'm not your wife." Without a confession or a proposal, I won't admit it. I used brute force to pull Daniel up and supported him out. Just as I was about to call Mateo upstairs to help, I was suddenly stopped by an unfamiliar voice. "Hey, isn't this Daniel?" What a coincidence. I turned around and saw a middle-aged man with an obvious receding hairline, hugging a fair and delicate omega, staggering towards us. Daniel immediately straightened up and stood in front of me, looking clear-headed. "Boss, what a coincidence to meet you here. It's fate. We didn't have a good time last time due to the accident. Today, I must invite Daniel to have another drink. Come on, come on." The man dragged Daniel into a nearby private room and busily went to pour the wine himself. Daniel leaned close to my ear. "This boss, he has some connections. The C family has a business deal with him. Usually, we should give him face if we can, but this guy has a poor character. See that omega? He's the waiter from Ruizho restaurant last time. Judging from the situation, Lucas must have gotten him at that time. Boss, he poured a glass of wine with a big smile and smacked the omega's buttocks in a very vulgar way. What are you standing there for? Why don't you go and offer a toast to Daniel?" The young boy shivered, timidly took the wine glass, and walked up to Daniel submissively, with an unsteady voice. "Mr. Daniel, I'd like to offer you a toast." Boss, he still looked at them with a smile on his face, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. He clearly had ill intentions. I frowned slightly and snatched the glass from the omega's hand. "Daniel has had a bit too much to drink today. I'll take this toast for him." Daniel wanted to take the glass, but I drank it all in one gulp and then was choked by the strong smell of the wine. "How are you? Are you okay?" I covered my mouth and shook my head, then patted the back of his hand to signal that I was fine. Boss, he looked a bit surprised. "Who is this?" "This is my lover. He can't hold his liquor well. I'll take him back now. We'll continue another time when we're free." Daniel declined Boss his invitation to stay and, regardless of the dissuasion, forcefully took me away. 17. I leaned against the back seat, my head feeling a bit dizzy. Although the night temperature was cool and damp, I inexplicably felt hot, as if there was a fire burning inside me. Daniel tightened his arm around me. Faintly, I seemed to smell the scent of my own pheromones. No, it shouldn't be at this time. Daniel swallowed hard and said in a low voice, "Oliver, when is your heat period?" I plunged into his arms, my hands clutching his collar tightly as I gasped for breath. That glass of wine, there's something wrong with it. 2. Daniel carried me back to the room. I curled up on the bed. Cold sweat soaked my back, yet my exhaled breath was scalding. So hot. Mateo, go get the suppressant. But young master, there are no suppressants suitable for Oliver at home, and the pharmacy at this hour. Go borrow. Go to William. Daniel knelt on the bed and wiped the sweat off my forehead. Instinctively, I grabbed his hand, and my fingertips felt the bulging veins. It's not enough. This little bit of skin contact is far from enough. The heat rose, making my whole body swell. My rationality was on the verge of collapse. See, Daniel, a temporary mark. Please help me. I pulled him down and embraced him actively. Bite me. The hand around my waist suddenly tightened. The next moment, the sharp teeth pierced the skin on the back of my neck, and a gush of pheromones was injected into the gland. My blood was boiling, and my bones were going weak, as if a dying man had received the final comfort. I let out a muffled groan. Daniel kissed my forehead and stroked my back gently. Do you feel better? I buried my head in his arms, biting my lower lip. The heat that had just subsided suddenly surged up again several times over, and my bones and muscles were almost burning to ashes. I feel so terrible. Daniel? A temporary mark. It's useless. All my senses were gradually turning into thick and dense water, and every cell in my body was clamoring for more. I want to. No. Daniel interrupted me sharply. Oliver, you're under the influence of drugs right now. You're not in your right mind. I don't want you to regret it later. Hold on a little longer. The suppressant will be here soon. He kept kissing me to soothe me. Sweetie, be good and hold on a little longer. As he was speaking, Mateo and William rushed over with a box in their hands. The cold liquid was injected into my body, and everyone stared at me intently. I propped myself up with difficulty and gritted my teeth for a moment, but I still couldn't control myself and fell down. It's useless. The suppressant is useless too. I let out a pained whimper. William, is this inhibitor of yours expired? Impossible. This is the best inhibitor from abroad. Can't be useless. What on earth did he drink? My consciousness was so muddled that I couldn't hear what the people around me were saying. Like a drowning man desperately grabbing a piece of driftwood, I clung tightly to Daniel's hand and kept calling his name. In a daze, he seemed to have gruffly cleared everyone out. My limp body was straightened up, my chin was pinched, and I could only look in the direction in front of me. Daniel kept a straight face and spoke slowly and seriously, word by word. Oliver, there are some things I originally wanted to say later, but now I have to say them in advance. I love you so much that I'm crazy about possessing you. I want to marry you. We'll live under the same roof while alive and be buried in the same tomb after death. Now, if I fully mark you, would you be willing? Daniel spoke very gravely, and every word carried an indescribable weight. He quietly waited for my reply, but my throat felt like it was on fire, and I was hoarse and couldn't make a sound. I trembled as I grabbed his collar with my hand and closed my eyes to press a burning kiss on him. 19. The C family was under strict martial law for 3 days, and no one entered or left during these 3 days. When I regained consciousness, my body was clean, but it felt like it had been chiseled by a hammer. Another pheromone in my gland clearly indicated that I had fully bonded with another person. I squinted at the man holding me in his arms, and fragmented memories flooded into my mind in an instant. It was simply chaotic and absurd. I bit Daniel's arm out of anger and woke him up. I stared at him accusingly and said, "Your skills are so poor." Daniel immediately came to his senses from his dazed state. He stared at me with his mouth open for a long time and asked nervously, "Do you still remember what you promised me?" I blinked. "Yes, I remember." He obviously let out a sigh of relief and pulled me back into his arms. His slightly warm palm stroked my smooth back. "I was afraid you'd deny it after it was all over. It's good that you remember. Let me tell you, you're a married person now. You can't give me the cold shoulder. When your husband wants a kiss or a hug, you can't refuse. You can't even look at other alphas outside. You have to always show your love for your husband. For example, When you wake up in the morning, kiss your husband first and then sweetly say I love you. Do you understand? So many requirements. I smiled and was about to put my arms around him when I saw a glint of silver on my finger. Looking closely, I saw a simple wedding ring on my ring finger. Daniel pulled my hand over and kissed it. This ring was just custom made not long ago. I originally wanted to propose on a good day, but things happened suddenly, so I used it right away. What's done is done. You can't back out of the wedding. I grabbed his hand and glanced at his ring. It was a similar style, but it clearly cost a fortune. My heart was filled with sweetness. I squeezed my fingers between his, shook them contentedly, and threw myself into his arms. Yes, I have no regrets. I love you too. 20. Boss, he was finally found to have used prohibited substances. It is said that the target that day was Daniel. Boss, he originally wanted to send his own man to Daniel's bed to blackmail the C family into giving him more profits. He has used such means on others more than once. Unexpectedly, after I intervened, the matter was exposed. Under Daniel's instruction, Mateo put a sack over Boss he and threw him at the dock, making him cry for his parents. Then the C family and the Chi family joined hands to collect evidence. Even if the He family had powerful backers, they couldn't get away with it this time. As for Daniel, he was happily preparing the wedding process. He wanted to do everything himself, even deciding where to place the flowers at the wedding venue and writing all the wedding invitations by hand. He even insanely stipulated what color clothes the guests attending the wedding should wear. When Daniel's mother learned about the two of us, she didn't react much, as if she had expected it. She patted me on the shoulder with relief. Oliver, my naughty son has been spoiled by me. You help me discipline him well in the future. If he bullies you, tell me and I'll beat him up. William was munching on a piece of bread beside. You don't have to do it. Our Oliver can take him down with one hand. Daniel's mother nodded with relief again. You're really worthy of being my daughter-in-law. By the way, I've also told your mother about this. She should return to the country in a while. Then we'll have a good meal together. I haven't gotten together with your mother for a long time. That naughty girl just knows how to have fun outside. My mother? Do they know each other? Just as I was wondering, my mother, who was probably watching handsome young men on some beach, called me. Hello? Oliver, do you miss Mommy? Are you now nestled in your dear husband's arms, picking out wedding clothes? No, I don't know. I'm not. I replied coldly. Oh, you child, why are you being shy? Your mom will be back in half a month. I can't wait to see the CP I've been shipping for half my life. Oh right, don't lift heavy objects or do strenuous exercise recently. It's normal to have bloating or nausea. Don't take random medicine. It'll be fine after 3 months. Tell Daniel that the wedding dress shouldn't be too tight. Otherwise, you might not be able to fit into it later. Also, keep the wedding process simple. Don't tire yourself out. You might have a bad temper and be emotionally unstable these days. That's also normal. Don't suspect that you have bipolar disorder. Hey, I just saw another handsome guy with a perky butt. I'll hang up now. What did she mean? I stared blankly at the hung-up phone. Looking up, I saw that Daniel had stopped turning the wedding brochure. Mateo's poured tea had overflowed the table, and William was so dazed that he forgot to chew his bread. Daniel's mother covered her face with both hands and howled. Doctor! Call a doctor for me quickly. It's over. The sky is falling.